Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. I'm really glad to have everyone on the show today. As I've always said, I am nothing without the audience. So if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps a lot, or at least leave a like. It does go a long way to push the algorithm in my direction. So, wristwatch check. Hey, hey, Kevin, how's it going? From Lakeland, Lakeland, Florida. Good evening from Wiesbaden, Germany. Wristwatch check. I'm wearing my recently acquired JLC Polaris Chrono. I really like this piece, and was kind of a grail piece for me because I had the automatic, the three-hander, and it was really nice, but I just wanted a little bit more, and it had so much more potential. I saw the chrono. I must admit, the Polaris World Timer, I don't like the fact that the mechanism for the wheel, the outer time wheel, has visible struts across the front, pardon me, across the front of the face. I mean, it's still a beautiful piece, but I don't know, that bothered me. But this is a fantastic piece, and it's thinner than a Daytona, uh, which is not saying much. There are other watches that are thinner, but a sports watch, this is also, uh, water resistant and all of that other cool stuff. And it has micro adjust, even though it is a butterfly clasp, which I appreciate a great deal. And it has the JLC 1000 hour or an AJLC 1000 hour movement because they have a few. So, today's topic was basically I would start with, and then let's see where everyone rolled with it. But I wanted to start by talking about tariffs and about the marketplace and watch collecting because um, watches, even if not a luxury, because if you're thinking about a $50 tool watch, that's not a luxury item, but the watch marketplace from the cheap to the dear is a fraction of the world economy and is not a significant issue. In the case of Swiss watches and the tariffs, it is a significant issue, but it's not going to break the country. The tariffs on industrial products and other things. Hey, Evil Mads, 666. How's it going? And so I was saying, the tariffs in general are going to impact economies worldwide, but I'm going to avoid all of those political issues. I just want to talk about watches. This is a watch channel. We're talking about watches. One of the things I love about watches is that there's no politics or religion or race or sex involved in watches today. And it makes it a good topic, for example, to talk about at a bar. You're not gonna irk someone's, beliefs unless they're a hardcore Rolex fan and you're not, talking nice stuff about Rolex. But other than that, but yeah, so when you think about 39% tariffs on, Swiss watches right now, and I believe your EU is currently 15%, which gives an opportunity for brands like Nomos. For example, Nomos announced that they're going to just eat the cost differences in the tariffs, which I think is going to be good for them because it will allow them to be more accessible to other collectors that may not have really thought about the Nomos, but Nomos is respectable enough to catch their attention, and now they're at a reasonable price, and so maybe we'll see more people buy Nomos because I for one, I have a what happened to my oh, it's in the case back there. I've got a Neomatic 42 myself, and I like the piece. If anything, it is almost too clean, on the face, but it has a very beautiful movement, which is its saving grace. I call it my mullet watch because it's business in the front and party in the back. And it's a beautiful watch. And so, and Nomos also makes some very interesting, colorful, and quirky pieces as well. And their world timer is a really nice watch. So there will be opportunities for people in this marketplace, uh, even though the tariffs are there. The tariffs are going to actually open other aspects of the marketplace that people hadn't been looking at, and that goes across the board from industrial equipment to pharmaceuticals to whatever. But as I said, with the watches, it will be, well, I can't afford that Swiss piece right now. Maybe I'll get this German piece. Or to the topic of the piece of the video, an Asian piece, Japanese, Chinese. There are some others, Malaysian. There are some other watchmakers out there uh, amongst the five tigers, I forget, but the five heavily industrialized Asian nations. And they make some nice watches. Even if we just restrict ourselves to China and Japan, um, there are classics in that space, from the modern classics like the Seiko spring drives and Crador and some of the QOE, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. There are a lot of really, really nice um, watches and pieces of horology coming out of Japan and China, if no other Asian countries. And I'm noticing that some watch pundits, most visibly Federico over at Federico Talks Watches. I just saw his last episode. I encourage you to watch him. He's a really informative source on the marketplace. And he was talking about his shift. He's started to fall in love with Japanese pieces. And I'm thinking, how much of that is a recognition of Japanese horological quality, which has been there all this time? And how much of it is people are now recognizing it because they're having to look at it, evaluate it, and in Federico's case, to give him the benefit of the doubt, he probably didn't think a lot about Japanese pieces being a European aficionado. And when tariffs started to impact his business, he started looking into Japanese watches, if only to be better informed, to sell more of them through his business. And had a newfound love with them. I mean, there are a lot of reasons to like Japanese pieces. They're all nice watches. Um, I currently only own one Japanese piece right now, and that's my Bulova Lunar Pilot meteorite dial, which is a fantastic piece. It's got their high beat quartz, 262 um, kilohertz, megahertz. Yes, megahertz, 262 megahertz. Their high beat quartz. This is the factory leather. It's kind of like a pseudo NATO strap, but it works nicely with the watch. And this is a Japanese piece. They bought Bulova and have been using Bulova to both draw ideas from in some of their retro designs, and also as a place to expand, because one of the issues with Asian watches, especially Japanese and Chinese pieces, is the aura of department store watch that hovers over them, that doesn't bother the general public, but it does prevent the higher end of the watch collecting community to give them the credit that they are due, if I may say it like that. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts? Let's look at some of the nice comments that are starting to scroll in. Hey, elusive man, how's it going, Hector? How's it going? David H. David. Hey, Chris, how's it going? I'm going to be in the Netherlands this week at the Things conference, but I wanted to get out to Frankfurt sometime soon. We got to get together. Elusive man. It's hard to avoid political issues when tariffs are directly associated with it, but I digress. I believe the world has enough of the circus. Exactly. Let's just treat it as it's a storm, and we got to weather the storm. The tariffs are something outside of our control. I mean, depending on where you live and what your political influence is, but that's a different issue. So basically, we're looking at it from the point of view of the tariffs are here, and are the tariffs pushing people towards Japanese watches and Chinese watches? I do have a Chinese watch. I've got an homage piece to it'll pop into my head because he made the Thin King, thinnest watch in the world currently. And he made the Joker, and see, no, I hate it when I was at my age, it makes me wonder, how am I starting to, which is not something to even bother thinking about. Oh my goodness. But yes, Konstantin Chaikin. Haha. Take that, bad memory. But yes, and so I've got an homage Konstantin Chaikin Joker, and I think it's a cool piece. So, but the thing is that there is a stigma of averageness with mainstream Japanese pieces that the Swiss have managed to avoid and charge a premium for exclusivity to a degree. Yet, um, the $500 Seiko 5 GMT is as good as most coming out of Europe. Even the premium ones beat the Seiko out on finish, and maybe there might be a travel GMT as opposed to the office GMT of the Seiko 5. But then again, the Miyota is a travel GMT, and that's Asian as well, Japanese citizen. So it a lot of people do think, and that's part of the reason there's a fake market. Because if people had more respect for the $500 Seiko, they'd buy that instead of some piece of crap that has Rolex hopefully printed on it reasonably well enough for people to think that it's real. Because for all of you know fake the claims about great fakes that I've heard, and I also deal with a lot of watches. I deal with a lot of watch people. People know that I buy and sell, so people come to me with all kinds of weird stuff. And 95% of the fake watches that have crossed my hands have or passed through my hands have been good to fair fakes. And the fantastic fake super super duper clones that people talk about they're as elusive as the watch itself. So instead of chasing around a $2,000 super clone that might be just as hard to get as the watch, take that time, save up, and buy the real thing. Or buy you don't have to buy a direct homage. You can buy a piece from a competitor in the same category. For example, if you really were hot for the Rolex, get the Longines Hydra Conquest GMT, the new one. It is an awesome watch, and you don't have and you don't even. It's not even a case of like wearing it. If you're buying the watch to impress other people anyway, what does it matter? Because if you're buying fakes 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're not buying the fake for yourself to satisfy your desire to wear a nice watch. You're buying it because you want to flex for other people. Which is the number one thing not to do with watches. Never buy a watch to satisfy other people. You will never be satisfied. And then why? Well, it's not a hobby then. It's a burden. Oh, Eric, Eric Mack, how's it going? Elusive man. I watched Federico's video on how he all of a sudden loves Japanese watches now. We watched the same episode. Found it quite amusing. Don't blame him. He's running a business. However, come on, Fed, be straight up, man. Well, like I said, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think he probably started looking more into it, because it's going to become more of his business. And as he looked more into it, he developed an affection for the Japanese watches, because if you do take the time to look into them, there are some really, really nice pieces of horology. Because let's say you're a purist and you don't like spring drive. What about the Grand Seiko High Beat chronos? They're as good as the Zenith High Beat chronos, and I own a I own an El Primero Chronomaster Open Heart myself, right? A Grand Seiko High Beat chrono, they don't currently offer an open heart, but I would be able to get it for at least a couple thousand cheaper than the Zenith. The Zenith retails for the 9,000 range, I think, currently, for the Chronomaster, and a Grand Seiko High Beat chronos in like the 7,000 range. Um, the and the Seiko Chrono is as good and may even be in some ways better, because the Japanese are excellent machinists, and well, so are the Swiss. But then I guess that would be a good comparison to make if get my hands on a nice Seiko High Beat chrono and do a little bit of a you know dual wear impression on two high beat chronos. But the fact is that if you want high end, you got high end. You want handmade, you got handmade. You can get anything that you can find in Switzerland. You can find a comparable, and in some cases better. In the case of Lange, you know, a Lange and Söhne, the Lange one, or any of the Lange's stuff, the Datograph or any of those. I mean, they put gold chatons with blued screws on everything, and even Patek Philippe doesn't do that. And the Japanese and the Chinese, there are small shops that do that too. Um, you can find high horology in Asia, and it's just a lot of people haven't been paying attention to that. And so now with the tariffs, it's causing people to look that way, for good or ill, for whatever reason they decide to look, west from, well, actually from Europe, it's east, but that's a different issue. Um, but the fact remains is these have always been good watches. They didn't just magically become great watches all of a sudden just because they're a better value. They were already a good value, and now they're an even better value. So yes, you will see more people wearing Grand Seikos, but more people should have been wearing Grand Seikos in the first place. And seagulls. If you think about the seagull, oh my God, the seagull under 500 bucks, and you get a column wheel hand wound chrono. I mean, when the Swiss sold it to the Chinese, it hand wound was unpopular because of movements like the Valjoux 7750 and others or the El Primero or the Seiko Pogue that were automatic chronographs, and a self-winding chronograph was hot at the time, and so the hand wounds wound up disappearing into basements or getting sold to other watch companies. And now hand wounds are either rotor-driven watches that they've removed the rotor and worked on it to repurpose the space on the plate or whatever. Um, or their old designs that were hand wound to begin with, like the Venus design that is in the Seagull. And that's a beautiful piece. And there are companies that take that movement and rework it. And there are companies that just order a high level version of it and put it in a nice case, like the French company whose name is escaping me right off the it'll pop into my head and I'll blurt it out while I'm talking. But yeah, there are some really Baltic. There are some really good Asian watches out there. Carter, hey Carter. Evil Mad. Will therefore more Rolex watches be allocated to the European market? Not that you mind the tariffs on a Pepsi or a Daytona, but the Oyster Perpetual, Datejust, Explorers, and subs. You're absolutely correct in that they should. Whether they will or not is a different issue. Rolex is a very conservative company, and they may decide, hey, contracts are contracts. You ordered these, you order it, you eat it, you do it. Which will probably open up the gray market more. You'll see some more gray market stuff going out the door, as the retailers compensate for the losses they take on the tariffs. Because if you take that Daytona and pay tariffs on it and then sell it out the back door on the gray market, you make your money back. So it's gonna, and it'll also goose the stolen market. You're gonna see more. I mean, Rolexes are already a target of theft. You're gonna see more expensive watches get stolen to feed the demand in the gray market and the black market for these pieces. You're gonna see more fakes. You're gonna see all the shenanigans. You're gonna see magnified because the market is more competitive now, with 39% thrown on Swiss. And like I said, now's the time for Japan and Europe as well. The French pieces, the German pieces, the EU's got a 15%, if I'm not mistaken, because Switzerland is Schengen. Switzerland is part of the travel network, but they're not financially linked to the EU. So that's another reason it's easy to single them out. But Baltic watches will be a good deal. Zinn watches will be a good deal. Dornbluth. Now's a great time to buy a Dornbluth because uh, the eyes aren't necessarily on Europe right now. They're, because they tend to lump Europe in with Switzerland in their minds. And if everybody's looking to Asia, now's a good time to, yeah, look to France and to Germany and to Britain and to there are even Indian watchmakers out there. There are companies in every country at least has at least one good watchmaker. But I wouldn't mind if they allocated more Rolexes to the European dealers. I don't know if I mentioned it last uh, week, and I'm not a yellow gold fan, but my ex was going to sell her father's president day date to a local dealer, and I told her, I said, "Well, if you're going to sell your father's day date to a dealer, I'll buy it, and that way it stays in the family." It had an aftermarket diamond bezel on it, and an aftermarket diamond bezel actually reduces the value of a president. So I paid to have the diamond bezel removed, and I put a factory gold bezel back on it, and I intend to wear it. I mean, it's not my style. It's a little blingy for me. Even with the gold bezel back and the diamond bezel gone, still has diamond indices, and it's a little blingy for me. So I can only see myself wearing this, with a very nice polo shirt at the absolute minimum, but probably mostly with a suit. But it was an opportunity to keep a piece that, because I knew Heinz, the guy who owned the watch, and he was a really great guy. And I liked the opportunity to give that watch to my daughters, who obviously they loved their granddad, and it was his piece. So it's nice to keep the watch in the family. Uh, Although I wasn't planning on buying a gold president, but at least my ex is letting me pay on monthly payments interest free. So just the fact that it's interest free compensates for some of the suddenness of the purchase. So I'm in debt in one sense, but worst case scenario, I'll give the watch back. But I I would actually be thinking of buying a Rolex if they increased the quotas in European shops. I would buy probably an Explorer 2, or maybe make the jump and get a GMT Master. But even at retail, the GMT Master is a healthy chunk of money. But then again, it's not that much of a jump from the cost of an Explorer 2. They're all expensive. Even I mean, yes, the oyster is half the cost of a GMT, but half of a lot of money, still a lot of money. Gian, elusive man, that's what happened to me right now. After Longines, I just found Seiko to be more justifiable purchase, as long as the movement's 6R at least, not 4R. Oh, elusive man. Brands are raising their prices October 1st, Cartier raising them September 24th. To be honest, for me now, I am pretty much done buying watches. I'll weather the storm and hope that the gilded age, weather the storm, hope the gilded age ends soon. Well, yeah, I think there'll always be some action in the watch market. Um, but yeah, right now, when the goose is high, watches fly. When the goose is low, everybody clutches their purses and keeps their money under their mattresses. I know that doesn't rhyme, but that's what happens. Oh, elusive man. Going back to Federico. Yeah, I actually bought my Omega World Timer from him back in 2021. Good guy. Well, he is a good guy. I like him. He's been upset about the tariffs, justified, but to come out all of a sudden love Japanese watches, I mean. Well, that's what I'm saying. I honestly think that he probably never really thought about Japanese pieces, started looking into them more because of the business, and realized, holy crap, these are some nice pieces. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he had a discovery. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can be blinded because, like, he's very big on Ferraris and other Italian sports cars, Maseratis and Porsches. He loves Porsches. He makes that kind of money. I mean, I've had a few Porsches myself, but they were all 944s. Um, there are Japanese sports cars that are as good as Ferraris. They're limited market, but then so are Ferraris. If you think about the whole Asian market, there are, very good small car companies that manufacture very exclusive sports cars. Some of them are exclusive just because they're glitzy, and some of them are exclusive because they're well-made sports cars, just like watches. There's variety in everything. So maybe Federico starts looking into Asian cars because of tariffs right now. Italy's not really beaten up because as much because it's EU. But what if he started looking at Asian cars because he couldn't afford European cars and discovered he really liked Japanese sports cars? Nothing wrong with that. So, like I said, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I like him. Um, Evil Mad. I totally understand that. Oops. I totally understand that you want to keep politics out, but since tariffs are the number one subjects in the watch community, maybe talking about the reasons of introducing them is interesting. Well, the reasons don't have anything to do with watches, and while I am an opinionated individual, um, I recognize also that there are people on because watches are so apolitical. There are people on both sides of the aisle and across the spectrum who probably watch this show, and I would rather not address the topic at all because we don't need to talk about its impact on the watch community. Um, but I do encourage you to be politically active in whatever direction you wish to be because political participation is the foundation of a democracy. But we're just talking about watches here. So, and the tariffs are an issue that we have to deal with. So I would prefer to just stick with the situation and not the causes behind it. And I apologize. But because some people say, "Well, that's cowardly." I'm like, "Well, I'm just this is just a hobby watch channel. It's just a hobby watch channel." As as an active editor in the publishing industry, I deal with these issues at a serious level, and that's where I prefer to keep those discussions. Elusive man, I can see his point, evil mad, on keeping them out, but I also see your point as well. Exactly, they're both valid points. This is all directly tied to tariffs from Agent Orange. Okay, uh, directly tied, but I do see Alex's point. Exactly. Well, I'm definitely going to have a different topic next week. If you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up, I'll be more than happy to address it. Last week, I talked about time crystals, and that didn't go over very well. Maybe I need to change the picture because it was I was trying to look stern, but I think maybe I look weird because I've got this, you know, grit. Because time crystals are a very complicated physics topic, and I was trying really hard to explain it in a way that was accessible, but maybe it wasn't as much. But it's interesting right now what's going on in the space. No pun intended. What about the Turkish brand Duran de Bon? I'm gonna have to look into them. That was Elusive Man. And Chris, cool, fun watch. I'm not sure which one he's referring to, but one of these watches are cool and fun. David H. That's a great day date. Maybe better than modern ones. I think you may find it more versatile than I expect. Actually, David, you're right. I have been wearing it more often because I think to myself, there are guys who wear gold watches every day just because they like gold. I can wear it more often, and I'm slowly wearing it more often. And this was the first one, the 18308 or something like that. I forget the exact model number. I took the bracelet off, took a photograph of the serial number, so it's in my phone. I mean the model number. But this was the first generation that had the sapphire crystal. I believe it does not have a full bridge, but I haven't opened it yet. I put it on the time grapher and it's still doing 270 something. It was bouncing between 271 and 273, and that's a decent amplitude for an old piece. And then as long as that amplitude is that high, I'm probably not going to open it up. But I may have it. I will eventually. I'm gonna have to take it in for at least a cleaning, and just to make sure, kick the tires and make sure everything's in good shape with it. But right now, with the amplitude that decent, I'm gonna leave it be because with a lot of old Rolexes, they've been known to fall. The parts where it breaks in just right and it just runs well for decades. I've known people who've never had their Rolexes serviced and they still run reasonably well, and that's a great nod to the quality of the design and the manufacture of Rolexes. Because people say, "Well, why are they such luxury watches?" They're not fancy, but they're flawless. You buy a Rolex, it will always work, you know? And, if it doesn't work and it gets repaired, that watch will always work. Um, you you and a watchmaker will tell you they're easy to service because they're well designed in a modular layout, and, they're they constantly refine the movements. They keep coming out with new technologies in horology. The Land Dweller, which is not the greatest name in the world, it's got a new escapement technology in it that no one has, and it's very horologically significant. I'm hoping that they're gonna use it in more places, but we'll see. You know, but yeah, no, I'm actually pleased in one sense because I hadn't planned on getting as the Germans would say, Angeber, show off watch, a flex piece. But now I have one, so I guess I'm gonna have to wear it occasionally at least to honor Heinz's memory. I'll raise a beer to him once in a while, wearing the watch. Evil mad. With my understanding of economics, a trade deficit's not a reason, especially not if you can print dollars as much as you want. It's a global currency. Well, like I said, that and then you get into the eco, the world economics. I was trying to think of the complicated word that ties it all together, but basically, that's why I'm focusing on the watch marketplace because the tariffs are in effect. They're not a cause. We're we're the soldiers in the trenches and the bullets in the aircraft are going over our heads. We just have to make it to the next battle, as it were. And however we weather it has nothing to do with the politics. Whether you buy Japanese watches, that's not a political decision in itself. That's a marketplace financial decision driven, or maybe because of the artistic aspect of the Japanese watches, like Fed opened your eyes to what's available on the Japanese marketplace and you go buy that, the tariffs are an an effect of a greater cause that is pushing you to do something else. But what you're doing is not necessarily because of the cause behind the tariffs that caused you to buy that Japanese watch. That's why let's just focus on the effect and that effect upon us and the marketplace, you know, because Japanese watches were and are now going to continue to be great values in the marketplace, and German watches and French watches and other watches that are not Swiss. Um, Elusive Man. I think I mentioned I'm getting the day date that was given to me from my uncle circa 1966 restored. Yeah, this one's from the 80s. All gold to blingy, but I actually like it, and like you, I'm keeping it in the family, worth it. Well, and eventually, I mean, this is I'll be honest, it's growing on me because it is a beautiful watch. It's not my immediate taste, but it is a beautiful watch, and it is growing on me. I will admit that. Then wind up selling everything and having just 3 gold watches, like Archie. Um Blingy used to buy the Vince. Hey, the Vince used to buy watches from eBay that were sold from Japan, but the tariffs are sometimes half the price of the watch. Well, that's, I mean, because they still have 15%. 15% of not a lot of money is a lot of money. It's a big chunk of, 15% is a big chunk of whatever you're buying. It's agency commission. It used to be at least. Um, Elusive Man. Yes, that's the generation I have. 1803. Mine is with a bark bracelet. Oh, that's nice. Bezel with a 1555 movement. Did get the serial and model from Rolex. They're much better than modern day dates. Well, I would say that they are different in their own unique way. But I wouldn't mind a modern day date. No, sir. Um, Butters, hey Butters, how you doing today? And we still got a bit to go. Good. Um, Elusive Man. Actually, if you can make one of my videos about this watch, it would be sweet. I do intend to do a video on the Rolex. I still haven't done a video on the JLC yet either. I think I did a short, but I haven't done a real one on either. I've been in kind of a funk lately, and I've been working, getting the pressures of the job, the new position at the IEEE magazine, and I haven't been paying enough attention to the channel. But the nice thing about this is I don't have to script anything. I just talk and respond to what the community is saying, and it gives me positive energy. So I look forward to this episode, and I will. There are a couple of episodes that I do want to record on the JLC, on the president, and it gives me also, now that I've recently picked up the JLC and some of the other new pieces I have, gives me some variations for the 3 watch collection suggestion series I had running, and some of the other things like I don't think I'm going to do a fun with straps with the president. But I might do a fun with straps with this because I got this with the factory rubber, and so I put this on. You can see the difference between this on the metal bracelet and then on the factory rubber, and then maybe a couple of NATO straps and my big old tactical strap, and maybe a leather strap or 2, and then boom, we have another fun with straps episode too. But I've got to do that. Actually, I think the biggest reason is I have yet to hit my stride with the uh, recording in this new apartment. I don't have a workspace to do my close-ups for the watches the way I used to have in the old apartment. And now I just had a realization that I could, I have an alternative I just need a nice portable table. I can do something. But yes, I owe you all some nice episodes on some of these pieces and some other pieces as well, because I picked up some novelty pieces recently that I think you might like to see. I got this nice Monaco homage skeletonized quartz, which is interesting, and some fun stuff. We'll do some episodes, and I really hope you like them. So, Evil Mad. Yema stopped using Swiss movements and focus on their French in-house movements. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And they also Yema really is making some nice pieces, you know. I have to, give them kudos. They really are. And Horage, they're another well, they're Swiss, so they're in trouble. But Yema, for example, they would be in good shape with the tariffs. Um, let's see. Butters. I bought a $1,300 watch from Japan just last month. Somehow I escaped all tariffs. You got in right under the wire. And you got it probably a very because 1,300 can buy you a lot of watch in Japan. Yes, they are good values. They really are good values. But then again, even some Swiss watches are good values because if you think about like the Mont Blanc Nicolas Roussek, right? This is a comically good value because Mont Blanc's not known among the flexers, the people who are buying the watch because of the money. A lot of people think, well, Mont Blanc is just they're branding some pieces to sell in duty free. But no, no, no. This is a mono pusher column wheel GMT vertical clutch chronograph and a partridge and a pear tree. They really made a great watch in that. And it retails, I mean, even at its retail, if it was from one of the triumvirate, they would cost twice as much. And you can get this used for in the 5K range, which is a fantastic bargain for that kind of a watch. So, the vintage market inside the United States will also be strong because those watches are all grandfathered in. They all are inside of the country, so they don't have to pay tariffs. So I would also expect to see a boom in vintage pieces being sold in the States and some lesser known Swiss pieces that were in inventory, like Da Vinci's and DeVille's, that'll start flying off the shelves because those are nice pieces too. But the average high-end watch collector doesn't give a DeVille or a Da Vinci the time of day. No pun intended. Elusive Man. Yeah, I'm sure nobody would mind a modern day date. Exactly. However, vintage day dates are so diverse, bark finish, different dials, white, yellow, stone. Modern day dates are all the same. Vintage is about unique. Well, this is also true. And vintages are also often unique because maybe they have different patina patterns or they w- wore differently. I mean, and as you point out, a lot of them were made with a lot more variety than Rolex. Well, actually, no, Rolex does have a lot of variety in their faces, but at the very high end. That's the problem. Back in, well, although a day date was high end back then too. But yeah, you saw a lot more variety in the day date then than you do today. Definitely. A lot of difference. Like I said, even stone and wood, if I'm not mistaken. I know stone, I think maybe even wood. See. Evil Mad. Don't worry, it's the live sessions that separate you from the rest. Reviews are more than enough out there. Well, exactly. I figure everybody's doing reviews, and the big thing about this channel is I do have these conversations. I open the floor to questions. We have a conversation, and I'm just a fellow collector. We're just but it's like a club meeting. Let's get together and talk about watches. Let's see. Um, I pretty much said what I had to say about the Japanese pieces. To summarize, for those of you who came late, that Japanese pieces were always a good value. They were always a good value. And now that there are people who are turning their eyes to Japan because of cost effectiveness due to the tariff price pressures in the marketplace, more people are appreciating Chinese and Japanese watches. But they should also open their eyes to German and French watches and British watches as well. because they also are outside of that 39%. They also have 15% tariffs like Japan does. So if you're going to look to Asia, look to the rest of Europe as well. There are a lot of great pieces out there that aren't Swiss. You know, as I pointed out, Zen is a fantastic company right out of Frankfurt nearby here. And they were only founded in 61 and they make fantastic pieces, or some of the Japanese micro brands. There's some really great watches coming out of Asia and places not Switzerland. And every dark cloud has a silver lining. And if the silver lining in this dark cloud is that it's forcing us to look at other brands, that's a good thing for the marketplace in the long run, in my humble opinion. Because even after the tariff switch, the reasons that the people looked at those watches and admired them aren't going to change. And those watches they already have in their collection now they're going to have to wear. No, I'm joking, but they'll, you know what I mean? Any appreciation gained during this period will linger after the reasons for the initial interest have passed, is all I'm saying. See. Um, Butters, I've heard said before that Mont Blanc is fire. Yeah, yeah, because they're trying really hard to be a real watch company. I think their first CEO was like ex JLC CEO. They really are trying to be horologically significant and not just be another watch company. Let's see. Elusive Man, Mont Blanc's my favorite. Oh, that Mont Blanc. Yeah, a lot of people say that that's one of their favorites in my collection. I have to do an updated collections video too. Elusive Man. Next week, we could discuss what got this group into watches and if there was someone who influenced our love for them. Maybe if you were lucky enough to get a vintage piece from a family member. That's a good point. That's one of the things we could talk about next week. We could open with next week. Not a bad point. So let's see. Yeah, we're 45 minutes in, unless we have anything popping up. I got to catch a train tomorrow, so I'm going to call it an early show. Although 45 minutes out of what I normally do in an hour, I'm at least giving you the lion's share of the show. But and if we had something pop up, of course I'd address it. But the Navitimer is my favorite of the collection, so I'll do that. I'll show the Navitimer real quick. It's the Navitimer GMT. It's one of the favorite pieces in my collection as well. I love it. And oh, I almost forgot to say, I finally got my Sattler wall clock running again. My son-in-law came over and he sorted out the pulley because the pulley was jammed. He sorted that out and rehung the weight for me, rehung the clock, um, spirit level bolted to the wall because it has secure screws in all four corners to make sure. So the clock is actually secured almost like a part of the wall, which helps with its stability and its timekeeping. Because when dialed in right, this is like a second a week, and it's a 1 hertz movement, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece to Sattlers. Elusive Man's been wearing his. Butter, see you next week. See everybody next week. Evil Mad, I cannot unsee Travolta every time I see the Navitimer. Oh, well, he is a pilot. And I always try to separate the art from the artist. He's made some good movies. He's made some garbage movies too, but he's made some good movies. So, on that note, have a fantastic week. And most importantly, have a great evening. Live long and prosper. Bye bye.